That time of year again, WWDC. I wonder if HomeKit will get any stage time at the keynote this year. Let's talk about that. Greetings Internet, it's Dustin again with my HomeKit Home, bringing you all things Apple HomeKit, from product reviews to how-tos to news, just like this one. So if that's something that you're into, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and the bell notification so you don't miss out on any of our new videos as soon as they're released. At the beginning of every summer, Apple holds its Worldwide Developers Conference, where they announce and give developers a sneak peek of some of the new features that should be coming to their software platforms like macOS, iPadOS, tvOS, watchOS, and of course iOS. This does include HomeKit. So a few months back, 9to5Mac were able to uncover some supposed new features that were coming to HomeKit in iOS 14. And we'll talk about those more in detail at the end of the video, but I want to focus today's video on some of the things that I would like to see come to HomeKit in iOS 14. So let's jump on in. As it stands now, using Apple's Home app, we have the ability to set push notifications based on something like a smart lock being engaged or disengaged, a motion sensor detecting motion, a contact sensor being opened or closed, or even a security system whose alarm mode has been changed. However, I do think we could really benefit from more robust and customizable push notifications. For example, I'd like to see notifications based on a specific threshold being set. So for example, temperature or humidity. This would really allow us to address specific situations in our homes that maybe automations aren't able to address. Speaking of automations, I'd also like the ability to set up a notification whenever an automation has been triggered, just so that I know that something's going on and I can kind of keep tabs on the different things that might be going on in my home if I'm not there. Nowadays, we are all spending a bit more time at home. However, if we're not there, it might be nice to know that that automation has been triggered. I've been going on about enhanced multi-user support ever since we got Apple's Home app, and I think it's with good reason. If you really break it down, we have pretty limited choice in what we can share with guests in our home. So if it's a trusted family member, then it might be okay. But if it's a child, you might not want them to have access to certain devices within your home. Also, guests. You might not want guests to have access to all of your cameras and all of your locks and all of these things. So, I'd really like to see more granular control over these things. Another thing I'd really like to see is personalized favorites. As it is with iOS 13, we only have a single set of favorites for the entire home. It's connected to the home, not to the user, and nobody uses a home in the exact same way. So it would be nice to have quick access to the accessories that each individual member of a home uses most frequently. Speaking of favorite accessories and scenes, I would like to see widget support for HomeKit accessories instead of in Control Center. For me, it's much more efficient just to swipe down from anywhere in iOS, get over to the Today view, and there you can see camera feeds, favorite accessories, scenes, groups, zones, whatever you use most frequently. This just makes the most sense to me. When it comes to home hubs, there are really three main gripes that I have that I'd like to see resolved in iOS 14. The first of which is Bluetooth mesh. All of the home hubs that we can use in HomeKit actually have the Bluetooth mesh protocol, yet they're not taking advantage of it. That would greatly extend the Bluetooth range. If we're not able to do that, I'd like to see the ability to choose which of our home hubs is active and being used to communicate with the outside world. This would greatly, again, enhance with Bluetooth range. Lastly, what I'd like to see are Macs as home hubs. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me that an iPad can act as a home hub, yet a Mac, which would be more stationary, can't. So I'd like to see those three things kind of resolved and improved for iOS 14. As much as we might hate to admit it, HomeKit is not a perfect platform, and it does have its issues that I do think warrant some improvements. The first of which is improvements to HomeKit Secure Video. Now, many users have reported having issues with recordings not showing up, with cameras not recording, and this is particularly troublesome considering that this is a paid service. So this is something I would definitely like to see improved in iOS 14. And though I do think it is a long shot, I would like to see some sort of log or record of events that might help us to troubleshoot if we ever have issues. One thing that we can pretty much count on as a HomeKit announcement for WWDC is product categories. So in years past, we've seen the addition of different types of products into the HomeKit world. For example, faucets, sprinklers, remotes, and these have had varying degrees of success in terms of implementation and actually seeing devices come to market. However, this go round, I would like to see robot vacuums finally come into the fray. So we can use services like HomeBridge, Home Assistant, and these sorts of things to integrate robot vacuums into our HomeKit setups, but I would like to see official support so that we could include these more easily into our scenes and automations. I'd also like to see support for kitchen appliances in HomeKit. Now, I can definitely see it being a bit of a nightmare to try to integrate things like refrigerators and stoves and microwaves. However, I think it would be a great addition to HomeKit if we had more native support for things like toasters, coffee makers, slow cookers, etc. You know, these smaller kitchen appliances, and I think that'll go a long way to getting us more support in the future for larger kitchen appliances. By far my favorite aspect of HomeKit is automations, but it is lacking in a few areas. A couple of things I'd like to see come to automations in iOS 14. First of which are delays. I'd like to see the ability to delay an action once an automation has been triggered. Secondly, a huge improvement to automations in HomeKit would be the ability to use accessory states as conditions instead of triggers for automations. So essentially what this does is create an OR option. So as it stands now in some third-party apps, we do have the ability to have multiple actions combined together in order to trigger an automation, but I'd like to be able to kind of separate those and have different triggers for the same action. That would help to greatly reduce our number of automations and give us more flexibility. Lastly here would be timers. I'd really like to see the ability to have an accessory perform a specific action for a specific duration of time, maybe even on different days of the week. So we have this ability with sprinklers in HomeKit, but I'd like to see this kind of moved over to different types of accessories as well. In iOS 13, we did see a host of new icons come to Apple's Home app, things like lighting icons and plug icons, door locks, contact sensors, and these things really have helped me personally be able to more quickly identify different lights in the Home app. However, I do think we can take this a step further. The first of which I would really like to see there have options for different types of accessories that we might connect to a smart plug. So we did see the addition of different plug form factors, so EU plugs, UK plugs, Australian plugs. However, we didn't actually see any new accessory types added. So maybe a purifier, a humidifier, a toaster, etc., etc. So I'd like to see that integrated. Lastly, and this is a huge part for me personally, I would really like to see new icons for scenes. We've been using the same icons for scenes since the Home app was introduced. So I'd really like to see there be a more robust selection of scene icons. HomeKit is a hierarchical system with the home sitting at the top level and then being broken down into rooms which then contain accessories, those accessories containing their different services, etc., etc. I'd like to see this expanded into what I'll call modes. So as it is now, we can group accessories together and control them as one, and HomeKit calls these groups. We can do the same for rooms, and these are called zones, but I'd like to see the ability to group different scenes and automations together into different modes. So for example, this would be really useful for different seasons throughout the year, so you could have different scenes and different automations that would only run if you're in, for example, summer mode, right? This would also be really useful for TV time, right? So you may have a motion sensor in your living room that you don't want to trigger during this specific period while you're watching TV, and having a mode that would be dedicated to TV time would not only trigger a scene, but it would also have that motion sensor be kind of canceled out. So I think this would be a fantastic addition to our favorite smart home platform. Now, I mentioned at the top of the video that 9to5Mac were able to uncover some leaks that are supposedly coming to HomeKit in iOS 14, and probably the most important of which is facial recognition for HomeKit Secure Video. Now, HomeKit Secure Video currently has the ability to recognize people, pets, and cars. However, this is supposedly going to be able to recognize specific people based on their face. Now, we don't know exactly what we'll be able to do with it, but it would be super awesome if we had the ability to get specific push notifications if the camera recognizes a specific person in a specific area. That'd be really cool. Another really cool thing, and I doubt this will actually happen, but I would like to see the ability to actually trigger automations based on the authentication of that person's face. So for example, if the camera I have above my door recognizes that it's me, it automatically unlocks the door. That would be cool. The second big feature that's supposedly coming to HomeKit in iOS 14 is essentially night shift for HomeKit lighting. Now, a lot of third-party lighting manufacturers' apps do have the ability to shift your color temperature from cool to warm whites throughout the day based on the time. However, this new feature coming to HomeKit is supposedly going to let us do this across all of the different HomeKit lighting products that we may have in our homes. Definitely a cool feature that I would use, but I'd like to really see Apple focus more on building the platform out as opposed to adding these sort of niche features. But I want to hear from you guys. What features do you want to see for HomeKit in iOS 14? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd also encourage you guys to check out the HomeKit show this Sunday, where John from HomeKit Authority and a few others will be hanging out and talking about what we'd like to see for HomeKit in iOS 14 announced at WWDC. It should be a ripping good time, and I'm really looking forward to it. You can find links to the HomeKit show podcast and the HomeKit Authority channel in the description box down below. You'll also find a link to our written piece on WWDC 2020 in the description box down below, where we go into a bit more detail about different things that we'd like to see come to HomeKit in iOS 14. Also in the description box, you'll find a link to our social media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, where we will be updating regularly throughout the conference to give you the latest and greatest in what's going on in terms of HomeKit. If you found today's video useful, you can let us know by smashing that like button. It really does help us out and help others find our content. And if you're interested in more HomeKit related content and you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and the bell notification so you don't miss out on any of our new videos as soon as they're released. Well, I really am excited to see what Apple has up their sleeves for HomeKit in iOS 14. And hey, if there's enough content, I'll make another video. Either way, you can stay locked into my HomeKit home for even more HomeKit related content. And until I see you in that video, this has been Dustin with my HomeKit home.